Hello, welcome back. It is great to be with you on Midas Touch Legal AF with Court Accountability Action. I'm joined by my dear friend and partner, Lisa Graves, and another friend of mine, a newly elected freshman legislator from the great state of Wisconsin from the 48th District. Andrew Hysell sits on the Judiciary Committee and on the Constitution and Ethics Committee. A lot going on in Wisconsin. Andrew, congratulations on your election. I know you are already, making waves and doing some really important stuff as a lot of national attention is turning to Wisconsin. Wanted to have you come on today to dig into this very active, very important state Supreme Court race that's ongoing and the money that is already pouring into this race. Elon Musk, just a couple hours ago, tweeted about it. Do you want to give us just a lay of the land, maybe a little bit about yourself, a lay of the land, and kind of what's happening in Wisconsin politics, how pivotal and important this state Supreme Court race is?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on today, Alex. So I'm an attorney. I'm a practicing attorney at Lawton Cates. I was just elected as the state representative for the 48th District, which is here in Dane County, the Madison area. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, Constitution and Ethics Committee, as you mentioned, which is exciting because I have my legal background, I think really does assist me in making good decisions on those two bodies. In this state, the Democrats have been, I would say the Wisconsin Democrats are the party of freedom. We've been fighting for freedom. We just opposed unanimously, and it's a constitutional amendment that the legislature is putting on the ballot relating to voter identification. Even though it's the law, they're trying to insert it into the actual founding document of our state. And the writing of it literally restricts the right to vote. It says a qualified elector shall not vote without an ID. And generally speaking, what we see is when people take away your rights, they don't tell you they're doing it. They dress it up for non-existent problems, and then they cynically get you to approve it. So my hope is that the Wisconsin voters will not approve this. In terms of the state Supreme Court race, it's really important. We've been making great progress here in this state. Governor Tony Evers was elected twice. Josh Kaul, our Attorney General, was elected twice. We have a Supreme Court that's full of independent jurists that are deciding the law based on what's correct, what's right, based upon case law. And what we are now facing is potentially an opportunity to continue that, or with Judge Crawford, or the opposite if somehow Brad Schimmel wins. Judge Crawford is a former prosecutor. She fought for victims' rights. She took tough cases. She also served in a private practice on the side of good. She fought for workers' rights when they rolled back Act 10, which was the right to organize for public sector employees. She fought for Planned Parenthood, and actually Schimmel, who was the Republican Attorney General at that time, was the defendant in that case. She's fought against corporate interests, and conversely, Brad Schimmel is literally will serve his corporate overlords if he's elected. He's already done it. He's fought for polluters. He's sued to overturn the ACA. He is simply not somebody we can have in the state Supreme Court because of his extreme right-wing positions. So that in a nutshell is what we're dealing with here. But the news is great. I mean, Wisconsin is making real progress over the years. We had these national story that was disheartening in the fall, but I'll tell you, here in Wisconsin, we're making a lot of progress, and we're going to continue. And I hope people will support Judge Crawford. She's fair, and she fights for the little person, and she fights for our freedom.
That's great. Thanks so much, Andrew. And, it strikes me like at this moment, as we see this onslaught from the Trump administration, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about for a long time here now on this channel, the Project 2025 agenda, the national implementation of this oligarchic control, this theocratic control. It's really heartening to hear about these state efforts and give folks a way to engage at the state and local level where we're going to need to be building community, building power, and moving forward. Lisa, let me turn it over to you. You know a thing or two about Wisconsin politics, about Wisconsin Supreme Court politics. have tracked the dark money in this space for a long time. And we have, in recent years, seen an explosion of dark money investment, national right-wing investment connected to Leonard Leo, connected to corporatists like Dick Uihlein, extremist oligarchs. Lisa, tell us about what we're seeing now and how it fits into this broader context. Why state Supreme Court races are attracting so much attention and why they're so important.
Oh, thank you, Alex. And it's so nice to meet you on this channel, and hopefully in person one of these days. But I am a Wisconsinite, and I have been tracking the dark money in the state for a long time, along with the dark money in other places. Obviously, a lot of it is national. In fact, in Wisconsin, these outside billionaires have been really focused on capturing our state, my state. And they do so through a bunch of dark money vehicles. But in this case, what we've been seeing is that Charles Koch, who's one of the richest men in the world, but not the richest, we'll talk about him in a second, Charles Koch has already been funding efforts to try to propel Brad Schemmel into office onto the Supreme Court. When Charles Koch wants a particular person on your Supreme Court, you should be very concerned, quite frankly, about why Charles Koch wants him there. I remember Brad Schemmel from when he was the AG in the state, and he squandered like $10,000 of tax dollars for these little crappy coins, these challenge coins that said "kicking ass every day," while he was doing the bidding of polluters and the big funders of Scott Walker and the right wing in the state. That's just my personal observation, not my official.
I'll interject to say, that does sound like a waste of government funds. I'm a fan of challenge coins. Any kind of weighty coin, I think they're great. Nice.
As long as it's not paid for by the taxpayers, I'm down. I'm down with that. But Wisconsin Supreme Court has been targeted last year or 2 years ago when we were tracking the money. It was just a shocking amount of money. Dan Kelly was running on behalf of the far right and trying to get on that Supreme Court in order to crush women's access to reproductive rights, to abortion in the state, along with advancing an extreme anti-gay, environmental agenda. And at one point, he said he didn't even have to raise much money because basically Dick Uihlein was going to take care of it all. He didn't name Uihlein. They'd met earlier. They'd met for the last time earlier the summer before. Uihlein injected tens of millions of dollars through these various vehicles into the state. Now, Uihlein has a business in the state, but he doesn't actually live here. And I don't think we need the funding from a big, huge corporation from out of state, from a brewery fortune, to come in and tell us who should be justices on our Supreme Court. But that's not all. We now have Elon Musk, who's probably, I don't know if he's ever even been to Wisconsin, somehow tweeting out that people should be voting for Republicans in Wisconsin. Elon Musk, the font of bad ideas, quite frankly. I mean, the stuff we've been seeing him talk about, like basically redirecting our money to get to plant a flag on Mars. These are out of this world ideas and not in a good way. So, I'm really happy to be joining the effort to help expose the right-wing money, the dark money that's going to be flowing into this effort to capture the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I hope the Wisconsin Supreme Court stays a fair court, because right now we do have a fair court. If the dark money succeeds in capturing the state court will be back to where we were about 10 years ago, where we had justices who were literally won their offices, shut down a criminal investigation into dark money coordination in the state that they themselves were the beneficiaries of through these same groups. And they did so unconscionably. Those justices, I think, are almost all now off the court. But that was a case where the Wisconsin Supreme Court was not doing justice, was not behaving fairly, but instead was doing the bidding of the funders who helped them get those offices.
All of this is against the backdrop now of this just nationalized fight over power at the state Supreme Court level. Right now, there's this huge fight ongoing. The right-wing election subversion machine, folks with ties to Cleta Mitchell's election denial efforts, are trying to overturn Justice Riggs's election there, trying to wipe out up to 60,000 ballots, including a lot of foreign, overseas folks, like people in the military whose ballots they're trying to wipe out. And Andrew, I wanted to tie it back to something that you talked about, this voter ID measure, to put that in the Constitution and the pretext of this, a supposed need for additional protection beyond what already exists in Wisconsin state law. I mean, it just all seems part and parcel of an effort to ratchet back rights and freedoms to access the franchise And do you think what's happening in terms of that effort is a coincidence in terms of the timing with the state Supreme Court race? Certainly seems like it's directed to chill voter participation and impede voter access in the context of this very important state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin coming up in April.
I believe so. I think that's exactly right. I think there is a political motive behind it. But what really I think is important is that this is a power grab from the legislature. Sometimes it's framed as like, oh, they're trying to like take away power from the Democrats. They're taking power away from the voter. Since 1848, we've had the right to vote. We've had the right as a qualified elector to elect the people that serve us in the legislature and the governor and the other constitutional offices. And what they're doing essentially is they're piece by piece whittling that down. And they're doing that in the name of like, oh, it's good for you. And I like what Lisa said about being very afraid. When a politician tells you they're taking away your right for your own good, be afraid, be very afraid. And this is not a partisan thing. This is a good government, constitutional best practice. Is like we do not chip away at our right to vote. And under this amendment, should it pass, a 95-year-old veteran of the Korean War who lives in a rural area, who's homebound, and his license is expired, under this amendment can't vote. Oh, ostensibly, he might be able to do a provisional ballot, but it says right there that the legislature gets to decide if it's counted. The legislature names itself as the entity that can waive this restriction. This is a power grab. It's the people in power saying, we want to tell you who you're going to elect. And it's abhorrent and it's upsetting. And honestly, in Wisconsin, the party of freedom and the party of rights is the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I was going to jump in because every time I vote, I present my ID under objection, basically, because it's a completely baseless requirement. No one else is coming up to that polling station to be Lisa Graves to vote on my behalf. If it happened, which it doesn't happen, the voting officials would immediately go, oh, now we have two Lisa Graveses suddenly trying to vote. It's just not a real thing. And these Republicans have been at this now for more than 10 years, trying to restrict the right of voters in Wisconsin. This effort to make it harder for Americans to vote, I think is quite frankly un-American. It's unpatriotic to try to make it harder for Americans to vote. And quite frankly, whether your driver's license is expired or not, doesn't mean you're not you. Doesn't mean you don't have a right to vote. Even if your driver's license expired, you could walk to the polling station, you're still you. And so it really is just one more way to trip people up. And the idea that this legislature, which has behaved so aggressively in trying to, really restrict people's rights in my home state, or at least not protect people's rights, for example, access to abortion, the fact that they would make themselves the deciders is also offensive because they've rigged the map in Wisconsin in order to have a false majority and at one point a supermajority that was unjust, in which the state of Wisconsin, which had a majority of Democratic voters, did not and could not have a legislature that represented that majority because of their extreme partisan gerrymandering. So they are unworthy of trust on letting us actually vote or intervening in our effort to vote as Americans and as Wisconsinites.
And it's coming from every direction, right? You've got the gerrymandering that's packing and cracking these districts to dilute voter participation and the will of particularly underrepresented people to see their will reflected in the legislature and in their congressional delegations. And then you've got this flood of money that has, is very much the byproduct of Citizens United, Speech Now, these other Supreme Court and other lower court decisions that have unlocked the floodgates for this billionaire dominated politics. And I think looking back at the national view of this, of this past election, you can see the extent to which this is changing the landscape, right? And I think on some level, we sort of accede to this idea that, it was a Democratic result because a majority of people voted for Donald Trump to be president in the Electoral College system and in the popular vote. But at the same time, we're living in this kind of distorted reality where somebody like Elon Musk can dump $20 million as just one example of his multi-$100 million spend behind a fake PAC that purports to say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was behind Donald Trump and his abortion agenda. Complete disinformation and propaganda to mislead people and to lead us astray. It's why we're so grateful to have this opportunity to connect to the growing audience here at Midas Touch and Legal AF. Just a few months ago, this channel started, and now we're up to 415,000 subscribers that Popak and this crew has grown, and it can't just be to have these conversations and to sound the alarm about the threats, but really needs to be an organizing force for us to use our collective power to make a difference. So Andrew, to turn it back to you, what can folks both in Wisconsin and nationally do to get involved with this campaign, to help push this forward and to make sure that democracy continues to prevail in Wisconsin?
Great thing people can do is just learn more about the race. They can go to crawfordforwi.com, learn more about the race, get involved, and just make sure people understand this has national consequences. What happens in Wisconsin affects a lot of things relating to districts, federal districts, as well as state districts. So this is something that we want to keep Wisconsin moving in the right direction, and this is a really important race on April 1st.
Thanks so much. And then just as one final little wrinkle, I'm really glad you brought up the role that this court and that state Supreme Courts in general play in these redistricting fights, because several years ago, the right-wing majority on the Supreme Court decided the Rucho case, where this court, which has over and over again demonstrated its willingness to seize power, to use its power, to weaponize its power, to advance the interests of the Republican Party, to advance the interests of these oligarchs and theocrats. They said there's nothing we can do about this. This is a non-justiciable political question that takes away our jurisdiction as a federal Supreme Court to resolve these issues, and it's up to the state Supreme Courts. And we're going to start to see challenges to state redistricting, to federal redistricting come through state Supreme Courts. And this is the forum to resolve these vital questions for our democratic future at this critical moment in our history. Lisa, any final words before we wrap things up and say goodbye to Andrew? We'd love to have you back, Andrew, by the way, as these fights continue to unfold in Wisconsin.
It would be an honor. You guys, great. This is a great show.
Yeah, I would just say, these Supreme Court battles are, it's really shocking over the last 20 years what we've seen, which is Leonard Leo and his dark money machine targeting state Supreme Courts for capture. These courts, are not meant for capture. They're meant to actually do the justice for the people of the state, to make sure that the laws are followed. They're not there for billionaires to be their chess pieces. And so, I really hope people pay attention to the fact that, Elon Musk is trying to weigh in this race, and the type of money that he's spent to try to capture other states and the presidency. I think the Wisconsin people have a good sense about them, and I hope that they will pay attention to the dark money and make sure that that our Wisconsin Supreme Court has justices who are fair and who are not bought and paid for by big money billionaires who, I just say, who want to go to Mars. I want to go to Wisconsin. I want Wisconsin to be an amazing place where justice prevails and where people's rights and voting rights are respected. And so, I think together we can help move forward in that direction.
That's amazing. So until next time, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Help us keep growing this incredible community. If you have state or local issues coming to the fore that present these questions, these important inflection points around constitutional politics and constitutional law and state politics, reach out to us. Get in touch with us in the comments. Find us at courtaccountability.org. We're so grateful for this community. And until next time, signing out.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.